Don't fear enemies. Fear those who are close, for it's the ones near you who betray, not foes. There's nothing dreadful about anticipating betrayal. The real horror lies in when treachery comes unexpected, and it turns into a knife in your back. Luton, Bedfordshire County, United Kingdom. On Monday evening, May 23, 2016, a 34-year-old woman was brutally slain in a house on Overstone Road. Sima Khan was a mother of 4 young children. The crime was marked by extreme cruelty. The victim sustained 68 knife wounds. Some injuries were so severe that Sima's arm and head were nearly severed from her body. When emergency services arrived at the scene, they were met by Sima's younger sister Saba, who had stumbled upon the corpse. From the outside, it appeared to be an ordinary, modest family home, unremarkable among others in the suburban area. But inside, officers encountered a scene of horrific carnage. Blood was everywhere, as if an entire gallon had been splattered across the walls, stairs, and floor. Today's story revolves around the Khan family, originally from Pakistan, specifically focusing on 2 sisters, Sima and Saba. Sima, the elder sister, was born in 1982. Her younger sibling Saba came into the world 7 years later, in 1989. The Khan family also included 2 sons. The girls grew up in the Netherlands, and when the oldest turned 18, the entire family decided to relocate to England. Saba and her sister Sima came from a conventional Islamic household. They took pride in their heritage, yet were also receptive to Western culture. Both young women spoke Dutch fluently, and upon moving to England, mastered the English language. The sisters shared a close bond. Sima, being an exceptionally kind, gentle, and soft-hearted individual, took on the responsibility of caring for her younger sister. Saba admired her and strived to emulate Sima in every way. She often said they had one soul divided between 2 bodies. The Khan family was quite tight-knit, and they all got along well with each other. When the parents moved their children to England, they settled in Luton on Overstone Road, in an area known for its sizable Pakistani community. Luton is located in southern Bedfordshire County, roughly 30 miles from London. This city ranks second in the UK for its Muslim population, which comprises nearly 33%. It was here that Sima began studying nursing. The young woman genuinely loved people and dreamed of benefiting not only her family, but also those in need of assistance. After completing her nursing courses, she found work as a caregiver. Sima helped patients who required medical care at home. Her patients appreciated her for her dependability, friendliness, simplicity, and calm demeanor. The Khan family resided in a brick townhouse, a 2-story residential building with several multi-level apartments and isolated entrances. Each apartment in this townhouse had a separate street-level entry. Such homes are commonly found in most European cities. A couple of years later, when Sima turned 21, her parents decided it was time for her to marry. They contacted their relatives in Pakistan to find a suitable groom for their eldest daughter. In the Muslim world, arranged marriages are quite common. The same happened with Sima. The young woman, respecting ancestral customs, didn't object and happily agreed to marry, despite barely knowing her future husband. She simply trusted that her parents would ensure her happiness. Friends, over 90% of viewers watch videos without subscribing to the channel. Check if you're subscribed. If not, please be so kind as to subscribe to the channel to support me. Incidentally, it's not uncommon for Pakistani immigrants settled in the UK to marry their compatriots. Arranged marriages have been practiced for several decades. Often, sham marriages are arranged between close relatives or individuals with significant age gaps. This is primarily done to emigrate from Pakistan and acquire British citizenship. Sometimes parents compel their daughters to wed men of their faith. Statistics show these unions frequently end poorly. Young women who've experienced Western cultural freedom often face moral and physical abuse from spouses who've lived their entire lives in a different country. Honor killings, where unfaithful partners are slain by their own relatives, are well known. Fortunately, Sima's situation was different. No one forced her into marriage. She willingly agreed, being very family-oriented. The young woman longed to marry soon and bring her own children into the world. Her future husband was named Hafiz Rehman. He was 3 years older than Sima and exactly 10 years older than her younger sister Saba. Hafiz had lived his entire life in Pakistan, never traveling abroad. The Khan's relatives considered him a good match for Sima. Hafiz's family hoped the young man would have more opportunities and a better life in Britain. By marrying an English resident, Hafiz would obtain a British passport and become a full-fledged citizen of the United Kingdom. After the wedding in Pakistan, the couple returned to the UK. The newlyweds settled in the Khan's house, as it's customary in Islam to live as one large, close-knit family. Hafiz obtained citizenship and found work as a taxi driver. The man adhered to traditional Muslim beliefs and values. He wanted his wife to bear children, raise them, care for her husband, cook meals, and manage the household. However, Sima didn't plan to completely give up her job, so she juggled between her duties as a wife and caring for patients. After some time, Hafiz's young spouse became pregnant with their first child, a girl. Before the woman could recover from her first pregnancy, a second, third, and fourth followed. Eventually, Sima and Hafiz had 4 beautiful children, 2 daughters and 2 sons. 3 generations of the family lived in one house, caring for each other and providing all kinds of support. In total, 11 people lived in the townhouse. Sima with her husband Hafiz and 4 little ones, her parents, 2 brothers, and younger sister Saba. Everything seemed to be going wonderfully, except for the usual domestic squabbles that occur in any family, not just such a large one. But at some point, the younger Saba began to feel tension in her relationship with her sister. This started after Sima and Hafiz got married. Now the married woman had other priorities. Sabah felt that her sister was neglecting her, that she no longer had free time they could spend together, and that Sima was only focused on her husband and children. The girl grew tired of being in her older sister's shadow and decided to act. What exactly caused Sabah to have a secret is unknown. It's possible that initially, the girl simply wanted to get back at her older sister for growing distant. But once things spiraled, it became impossible to understand the true reason for Sabah's behavior. The girl was young, inexperienced, and at first didn't consider what her strange infatuation might lead to. So, within this large family, a secret emerged. A secret that was in plain sight, but only known to 2 people. It so happened that the younger sister, Saba, fell in love with Hafiz, her older sister's husband, and interestingly, the man reciprocated. A passionate affair began between these 2. Despite the 10-year age gap, despite Saba being Hafiz's wife's younger sister, despite them all living in one house with other family members, an all-consuming passion swept both off their feet. This affair began gradually with shy glances, playful flirting, and a new, thrilling feeling in their chests. The man, more experienced than Saba, immediately understood what lay behind the young girl's brief looks. In reality, he took advantage of her inexperience and innocence. The affair began after the birth of the first child. Sima was so engrossed in caring for her daughter that she overlooked how her younger sister looked at her husband. At that time, they still had fairly good relations. Sabah even helped look after her niece, playing the role of a good aunt. And when no one was watching, she melted in the arms of another woman's husband. For all the following years, their double life continued. The affair periodically ceased, then resumed with even greater intensity. Over time, Sabah became increasingly obsessed with the married man. She and Hafiz communicated via WhatsApp messages because otherwise it would have been difficult to conceal the love affair from other family members living near them. With each wave of passion, this relationship became more strained. Sabah began to feel jealous of Hafiz's wife, her sister. She was overcome by fits of rage if she saw the man paying more attention to Sima. She complained to him that he found time to write to her 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but couldn't find time to be alone with her. The secret affair was, to put it mildly, complex. The close family ties binding people living under one roof turned this house into a volcano, waiting to erupt at any moment. Despite the relationship developing right under everyone's noses, no one noticed anything. Or perhaps everyone just pretended, acting as if nothing was happening. Although, most likely, the relatives simply considered impossible what was occurring between Sabah and Hafiz. Their faith and upbringing didn't even allow them to entertain such a possibility. Sima herself paid no attention to the strange glances between her husband and younger sister. She was a devoted mom, looking after 4 children while also being a hard-working part-time caregiver. She physically lacked the energy to monitor her husband, and she certainly didn't expect such betrayal from her younger sister, whom she had cared for throughout childhood. Meanwhile, Hafiz and Saba would slip away from home and indulge in lovemaking in the taxi the man drove. When Sima went to work, they would meet in the family bedroom. At that time, the children were 7, 4, 2, and 1 years old. Saba often stayed to look after them, so her presence in the marital bedroom wouldn't surprise anyone. Hafiz, working as a taxi driver, could also choose his shifts independently. He deliberately scheduled his days off when his wife was out. Although the secret affair in the family home continued for years, Hafiz always put his wife first. This greatly angered Saba. At one point, the man even considered taking the younger sister as a second wife. He was already anticipating how happy he'd be with 2 beloved women. But a local imam explained that marrying sisters simultaneously was forbidden in Islam. So Hafiz decided to continue meeting Sabah secretly. For him, this girl was forbidden fruit, as she was young, innocent, and not allowed to engage in relationships with men before marriage. But Saba belonged to him, making the affair even more thrilling. A few months into the relationship, Saba became pregnant by Hafiz. This happened because he didn't use contraceptives, considering it unnatural. When the man learned of the pregnancy, he forced the girl to go to the hospital and terminate it to prevent their affair from being exposed and avoid a major scandal. Quite possibly, after this incident, Hafiz realized that a secret relationship with his wife's sister wasn't the best idea. So in February 2016, 4 years into the affair with his young relative, the man decided to end the vicious connection and start anew with his wife and 4 children. He began to consider moving to his own apartment. This would be the change he and Sima needed now. The affair ceased once again. The threat of Hafiz moving to his own place with his wife and children deprived Saba of sleep. She couldn't imagine her life without this man, but there was no longer room for her in his heart. The thought of losing control over the situation led Saba's mind to seek the only logical solution, even if it would be the darkest. The young woman dreamed that Hafiz would belong only to her, and she would stop at nothing to achieve this, even if her own sister, who until recently had been the closest person to her, stood in the way. Sabah turned to the internet, searching for ways to eliminate her rival once and for all. Once Sima disappeared, Sabah could take her place. It would be the perfect family, the one her older sister had once created for herself. They could all live happily ever after if Sima hadn't taken Hafiz for herself. The girl believed this man was made specifically for her. The fact that another woman was his wife seemed like some absurd mistake that needed correcting. Sabah desperately scrolled through web pages. She looked for venomous snakes for sale and researched the intricacies of poisoning people, read about hiring hitmen, and even studied an online article titled 16 Steps to End Someone's Life and Not Get Caught. In March 2016, Sabah contacted a sorcerer from Pakistan who who practiced black magic and could supposedly send someone to the afterlife through spells. She told him about the situation, speaking in third person, that one woman needed to get rid of another woman to obtain a man. Sabah even paid this sorcerer over $6,000 to cast a deadly curse on Sima. The girl liked the idea of disposing of her older sister without dirtying her own hands. When no changes occurred in Sima's well-being, the younger sister wrote to the sorcerer again, complaining that everything had only gotten worse. The man now wouldn't even look at that woman and had completely lost interest in her. She begged the warlock to quickly finish off Sima so Saba could reclaim Hafiz. But after she transferred money for the ritual to end her sister's life, the sorcerer simply vanished, proving to be an ordinary internet scammer. Sabah couldn't bear the thought of losing Hafiz forever. She considered him her chosen one, for whom she had broken Islamic laws, undergone surgery, and done things that not every woman would dare to do. Worst of all, her parents had started talking about marrying off their younger daughter. In fact, these discussions had been going on for a long time, and there was even a suitable candidate for her husband. But everything had stalled at the point where the two families, of the groom and bride, couldn't agree on the terms of the marriage. Although Saba was madly in love with her brother-in-law, it was extremely difficult for her to defy her parents. She couldn't cope with this and felt she was taking blow after blow. It was hard for the girl to see her sister, who many thought had an ideal life, an ideal marriage, ideal children. While Saba was still unmarried, had no children and no relationships, her future path was so unclear that she began to feel jealous, resentful, and angry towards her sister, Sima, for some reason deciding to blame her for all her troubles. It was these emotions that Saba experienced at that moment that completely overrode the voice of reason. Meanwhile, Sima and Hafiz had found a suitable apartment in another area of Luton, where they could live with their 4 children. A date for the move was already set, May 25th. To Saba, it seemed that Sima was stealing the life she deserved. The only solution was to get rid of her older sister as soon as possible. Moreover, Hafiz's interest in Saba had noticeably waned. In recent months, the man had been courting his own wife in every way, knowing deep down how much he had wronged her. Saba sent him messages full of romantic anguish. She wrote that nothing and no one in this world could change her feelings for Hafiz, that if she could, she would rip out her wounded heart and show him that with each passing day, her love for him grew stronger, despite everything. And if Sabah suddenly ceased to please Hafiz, it didn't change anything, because she was ready to do anything to get him back. This is exactly what she tried to do. Saba devised a plan according to which she would personally dispose of Sima, her own sister, to steal her perfect life. The girl understood that while she was looking for a hitman willing to carry out her terrible request, time was running out, the moving date was approaching, and after that, nothing could be changed. At that time, Saba was 27 years old, and she was preparing to commit the most horrible crime, taking the life of her own sister, with whom they were once one soul, for the sake of a man. On May 21st, 2016, Sabah went to the supermarket and bought a knife. The girl knew that in 2 days, on May 23rd, her parents, brothers, and brother-in-law Hafiz Rehman would be attending a funeral at the local mosque until late evening, as an elderly relative of the Khan family had passed away the day before. Her older sister Sima wouldn't be able to attend the funeral because that evening, as a caregiver, she needed to visit an elderly woman's home, and Sabah was supposed to stay home to look after her 4 nieces and nephews. Everything was falling into place perfectly for the terrible plan to unfold. The family home, where the bloody act was to take place, was entirely at the perpetrator's disposal. All that remained was to put the children to bed so they wouldn't interfere at the most inopportune moment, and then persuade her sister to return home early. And that's it. the rival eliminated. The path to long-awaited happiness with Hafiz open. This is exactly what Saba thought as she plotted her attack. Sima left for work at 10:15 p.m., while Saba searched the internet for information on how long Muslim funerals usually last. Everything had to happen within this time frame. She had to strike to secure her happy life with Hafiz. The girl put her sister's children to bed and began implementing her devious plan. At 11 p.m., Saba sent Sima a message asking her sister to return home. She said that the youngest daughter, who had recently celebrated her first birthday, wouldn't calm down, was crying, and constantly demanding her mother. At 11:03 p.m., Sima replied that she was already on her way. In reality, all the little ones were sleeping peacefully upstairs in their beds. A surveillance camera on a neighboring house caught the moment when the older sister drove into the driveway, got out of the car, and headed towards the front door. It was 11:07 p.m. The footage captured the light turning on inside the house. This was Sima pressing the switch in the downstairs hallway, and 45 seconds later, the light went out, and the house plunged into complete darkness. It was during these moments that a horrific crime was being committed in the Khan house, lasting 8 long minutes. As soon as Sima entered the ground floor hallway, Saba attacked her with the knife bought the day before at the supermarket. Not expecting any foul play, the woman lost those precious seconds when something could have been changed. The sight of her frenzied younger sister deprived Sima of the ability to make the right decision. When the blows rained down on her one after another, she no longer had the strength to defend herself. It would later be revealed that Sima died in the first minutes of the attack. Nevertheless, she managed to scream and call for help, but her cry was lost in the noise of the blows tearing apart her body. In total, during this ferocious assault, Sabah inflicted 68 stab wounds on her older sister. She slashed her throat so deeply that she nearly decapitated her. Then she stripped off the victim's outer garments and continued swinging the knife with such force that the victim's arm was left dangling, almost detached from her body. Neighbors heard Sima's screams. The commotion downstairs woke up the eldest daughter. The girl approached the stairs and asked her aunt what was happening, what the noise below was about. Saba sternly ordered her niece to return to bed, saying she was trying to catch a mouse. She still needed to stage the crime scene as a random burglary, so she couldn't be distracted by the child. Several of Sima's arteries and jugular vein were damaged, resulting in a significant amount of blood. Her face, head, and right arm were also severely injured. In the heat of the moment, the perpetrator didn't notice that she had slightly wounded herself as well. When it was all over, Sabah broke the window on the back door, tossed her bloodied clothes into a plastic bag, and hid it in her room along with the bloody knife, her older sister's mobile phone, and some jewelry. She then took a shower, called her parents, and only afterward contacted emergency services. On the phone, Saba claimed that a robbery had occurred in which her sister was harmed. The rest of the family rushed home and found Sima lying in a pool of blood. When the ambulance arrived, it was too late. The 34-year-old woman was already dead. The crime scene was so horrific that at first, the police actually believed the attacker was a man. The officer's first step was to question the main witness to the crime, the deceased's sister, Sabah Khan. The young woman told detectives that that evening she had been putting the children to bed while the other family members were out on various errands. The parents, brothers, and sister's husband were at a funeral at the mosque, while Sima had gone to work. Everything was normal. The children fell asleep, though the youngest had fussed a bit, and Saba had to message Sima to hurry home, but then the little one dozed off. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like this video, it's really important. Sabah spotted her sister's car pulling into the driveway, so she went to take a shower. But just as she turned on the water to rinse off, she heard a loud noise and Sima's screams downstairs. Sabah threw on a robe and rushed down the stairs toward the source of the cries. In the hallway, nearly at the entrance, she stumbled upon her sister's bloodied body. after which she phoned her family and called emergency services. She hadn't seen or heard anyone unfamiliar, only Sima's screams. When officers inquired about the cut on her hand, Saba stated she likely cut herself on broken glass strewn near the back door. Detectives believed her claims and began investigating the incident, but they were perplexed by Saba's behavior. Her demeanor during questioning seemed emotionless and almost rehearsed. Considering her own sister had been so brutally attacked while Saba was showering upstairs, her lack of emotion aroused suspicion. Although everyone grieves differently, and blaming the young woman for her current state was clearly unwarranted. What surprised the authorities most was that such a vicious crime occurred in an ordinary, safe, and quiet neighborhood, at a time when several people were in the house, including 4 sleeping children and the Khan's younger daughter. Police checked the vicinity, incoming and outgoing vehicles for any leads. While the crime scene indeed looked like a botched robbery, the ferocious nature of the attack on Sima made it seem more like an act of vengeance. The entire family experienced incredible grief from losing a loved one. Hafiz Rahman, Sima's husband, was beside himself. He was distraught over the unfulfilled dream of moving to a new apartment with his wife and children, as both spouses had been eagerly anticipating this happy moment and counting down the days until the move. Relatives and police appealed to the public for any information that might help catch the criminal who had taken the life of a mother of 4 young children. The community of Luton and its surroundings was deeply shaken. Sima's husband, Hafiz Rahman, delivered a speech. He said their family's hearts were torn to pieces. At that moment, the man didn't yet know that the motive for Sima's murder was his secret affair, and that he bore some responsibility as well. The forensic laboratory informed detectives about the autopsy results. As mentioned before, Sima had sustained 68 stab wounds. Death occurred after the first few strikes, but the perpetrator continued plunging the knife into the woman's body again and again. The police were almost certain that the crime had personal motives and was committed out of passion. A burglar or stranger wouldn't waste time pointlessly attacking a woman so many times after she had already passed away. That's why the police decided to speak once more with the main witness, especially since Saba was very close to her sister Sima. During questioning, the young woman presented her version of events and told the police about the deceased's secret. According to Saba, her married sister had a clandestine lover, so she entertained the idea that he might have ambushed Sima and taken her life. However, instead of deflecting suspicion from herself, Saba only intensified it. It seemed she deliberately tried to tarnish Sima's reputation at a time when no one could refute her words. The fact was, detectives had already spoken with other relatives, neighbors, and family friends, and most believed Sima would never cheat on her husband. In reality, she simply lacked the energy, time, or desire for it. Caring for 4 children, looking after her husband, and working part-time all left no room for an affair. Theories even arose that it could have been an honor killing. What if Sima was indeed hiding some disgracing secret? The method of execution was so brutal that investigators were actually looking for a male perpetrator, believing a woman wouldn't dare such an act. To test their hypotheses, detectives examined the whereabouts of all family members over the past few days and confiscated all home computers and gadgets. Soon, they discovered that Sabah Khan had recently purchased a knife at a supermarket, and the bought knife matched the weapon used in the attack. They also managed to recover the Google search history. Further examination of Saba's mobile phone revealed a long list of romantic messages. This uncovered a 4-year affair between the young woman and her older sister's husband, Hafiz Rahman. The crime investigation revealed a motive steeped in jealousy and hidden anger, fueled by the illicit affair. Several social media messages exchanged between the lovers showed that Saba called her sister profane names and accused Hafiz of marrying Sima only to obtain a passport, after which the man blocked his relative on social media, thus ending communication. On May 31st, 2016, 8 days after the tragedy, a search was conducted in Saba's room. Detectives found the missing jewelry, supposedly stolen during the robbery, Sima's mobile phone, a bloodied knife, and blood-stained clothes Saba had worn during the attack. The youngest daughter of the Khan family was arrested on suspicion of the killing. Investigators realized she had fooled them with her tale of a failed robbery. At first, Saba denied involvement in her older sister's death, but she had to admit to the secret affair with Hafiz. However, she claimed that after a terminated pregnancy, she had distanced herself from the couple. The young woman still insisted on the robbery that had taken her sister's life, but it was hard to argue with the irrefutable evidence found in her room. Finally, Saba broke down, and after several further interrogations, confessed to attacking her sister. She claimed that Hafiz had manipulated her to fully possess her, that he had physically abused her for many years. She felt trapped, as the man was 10 years older and much more experienced. During the trial in October 2017, Sabah Khan eventually pleaded guilty to her sister's murder. The prosecution stated that Saba was infatuated with Hafiz. The infatuation gradually turned into a toxic obsession. The young woman could no longer tolerate the fact that she had to share her man with someone else. She was angry at Sima, considering her life perfect. In his testimony, Hafiz Rahman accused Saba of harassment and manipulation. The man admitted that he had indeed made a huge mistake by succumbing to the charms of the younger sister, but then couldn't leave her due to threats. Saba promised to harm herself if Hafiz stopped seeing her. She constantly sent him messages, expressing her love in harsh terms. However, no matter how much Hafiz claimed he wanted to end the relationship with the young woman, he continued to make love to her, even in the days leading up to the crime. Sabah Khan's lawyer insisted that Hafiz was not blameless regarding his wife. It appeared that the young relative had almost forced him to have an affair behind his spouse's back for several years. In reality, Hafiz had taken advantage of the young woman's inexperience. The lawyer portrayed Saba as a lonely person with mental health issues, stating she had previous instances of self-harm and would now live with what she'd done for the rest of her life. While the attorney spoke of remorse, Saba herself showed no emotion, sitting on the defendant's bench with a vacant stare. Clearly, at that moment, she regretted not the ruined life of her own sister, but that she would have to answer for it to the full extent of the law. Sabah Khan was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 22 years behind bars. After this time, she can apply for parole. Sabah Khan remains incarcerated in Bedfordshire, UK. Her lawyer filed an appeal, believing the sentence was excessively harsh. However, the Appeals Commission rejected the petition, not finding the term initially set by the judge to be outside the legal framework. Hafiz Rahman later made a statement saying he never imagined something like this would happen. He insisted he was ashamed of committing adultery and that not a day goes by that he doesn't regret what he did. But he remembered his wife, saying she was a loving mother to 4 beautiful children, a devoted wife, beloved daughter, and the most caring of sisters. Her tragic death completely shattered the Khan family. The most terrible thing for parents is to learn that one of their daughters took the life of another. This is the end of the story. Like the video and leave your thoughts in the comments. This was Jeremy. See you soon.